our natural rival, the team that we see more than anybody else. They know our play calls. We know their play calls. We know their people. They know our people, all that stuff. Always a close game. Always a tough place for us to play. Squeaked out one last year after being down late, coming back and winning in overtime. Great game down here with them the first time. Just, the concern is in that, you look up and you see the field goal percentages they shoot. They're second best in the country, I think, behind UConn. They make shots. They can make you they penalize you for every defensive mistake you make. You've got to be able to turn them over to have a chance, or you've got to really guard them. One of those two things, because if you let them get more attempts than you get, they're probably going to outscore you. So big challenge for us, especially on the road. A lot of matchup problems for us. Hopefully we present some for them as well. But midweek game, and that brings into, us, the traveling on the road. It's been tough for us. And hopefully we've got some things figured out when it comes to that.
Paul, go ahead.
Well, looking at their last four, they've lost 3 out of 4, I think, by a total of 12 points. It's they've kind of rallied late in a couple of those. What do you see when you look at that film and see what's made them come up short in those games against some really good opponents?
It's just turnovers. I mean, it's just running out of possessions. You go back and look, and there's and I know Robin well enough to know that it's 2 or 3 here and there. That if they don't, and they're all fixable. I don't know, and she's going to get them fixed. And I just hope it's not against us. But it always seems to come down to 1 or 2 crucial turnovers that keep them from getting another 3-point attempt up or another post up for Blackwell or Williams. But those 2 things, and then sometimes they've struggled with foul trouble. So you got to be able to expose one of those 2, if not both, to expect to beat them at home.
Russell, go ahead.
Second time to play them this year. What changes? What doesn't change?
Well, our transition defense has got to change. We were whatever descriptive word you want to put in there. We were awful. We watched the film yesterday, and I think our kids realized that at that point in time, we had just gotten back from Kentucky. It was our second SEC game, I think, if I'm not wrong. We were probably still right there. That was our height of shot selection, shot distribution, playing time, roles identifying. We were really at a crucial turning point in our season back then. I think we've gotten past all those things, so I think that will help us change, and our transition defense has to change. But then what else needs to stay the same is we were very aggressive. We got great shots. We didn't make enough of them, and we could have probably gotten even better shots had we been a little bit more patient. So we got to clean up. We had too many defensive errors in transition and the half court. So a lot of time focusing on those, and then do what we did offensively, just kind of do it a little bit better.
Seth, go ahead.
Mike, I know that there are no easy games in the SEC, but when you look at the last half of the schedule, you have less ranked teams on it than you did at the first half here, thereabouts. How important is it for your team to take advantage of these opportunities and get ready for postseason?
I think in a non-COVID year, it would have more magnification than it does this year. I think playing the games, I think being in them, I think competing in them this year probably carries more value than it ever has in the past. So when you look at that, you start looking at that schedule. I think we're 3-5 in league, and people start counting numbers and things like that. What's the match? How do you get to 8, 9, or 10? I don't know that happens this year. I've said since the beginning, I think a 6-10 team gets in from the SEC. They may be 6-9 this year, or 6 and I guess it'd be, whatever that would ultimately be with not being able to play Vanderbilt for everybody. But I think overall record has less impact than usual. But for psyche and for seeding and, things like that, this is one of those ones. But it is on the road. That's the other part of this. The road factor this year has more magnitude than ever. So it is important to get off to a good start. This is the first game in kind of that last leg. You know, we break the seasons up. This is game one of the closeout of this season. So we'd like to get off to a good start with it. And it's I always kind of hate it when it's the first time you play somebody for the second time in the year. You know, we haven't played anybody. It's the first time we've done that with this team. So anxious to see what kind of carryover we have, what kind of memory, good and bad, that we have from them from that first game in Bud Walton.
Jason, go ahead.
How much has what Taylor and Aaron have done the last couple of games really helped maybe change the way you want to play, and how big can that be for you down the stretch if they can continue that?
Well, they give us, you know, combined, you know, 10 and 10 or 15 and 10 a night that, and then there's the defense they've been playing. You know, we have to have that. Taylor has been plus 17 in our lineup efficiencies the last two games, counting the UConn game and the Auburn game. You know, Aaron giving us a scoring punch and a big body that can give Taylor a few minutes rest. You know, Taylor's knee is continuing to improve, but will never be 100% all year long. So those two kids, the way they split those 40 minutes, and whether it's, you know, with one of the Destinies or with Macy, we got to get a productive 40 out of that spot in some shape, form, or fashion to be the best team that we can be. You know, if they're average, we're probably going to be average. If they're below average, we're probably going to be below average. So our team knows how important they are. It sometimes is lost on a game-by-game basis, but what they do sets up so much of what our guards take advantage of, and their ability to defend in the post, tip some rebounds around. That's the difference between winning and losing.
Brad, go ahead.
Mike, one more on the playing a team for a second time. Do you think it's more common that the teams will run things back at you almost exactly like they did before, or is it more common they'll throw a couple of wrinkles at you just to see if you're paying attention?
I think more common that you see some wrinkles. It'll look the same, but maybe with a little twist to it at the end. I know we did that yesterday. You know, we worked on a couple of little actions that were successful the first time that we will try again, but my expectation is they will get those solved. So we'll throw a little wrinkle, a counter, you know, a counter action, a counter punch. I think you do have some more tactics that go involved, but, you know, like I know we have to be really careful. I tend to overdo that. I tend to put too much news. So I've gotten really a lot better over the years. It's still trying to keep it simple, but maybe have each player has a counter play. Like if they see this coming, they think it, you know, for Chelsea or for Slocum or for Amber or for Mac or it may look one play different for each of them, and then do what we did just a little bit better the last time.
Jacob, you have anything? Micah, do you have anything?
Text Alyssa and tell her I got it.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, Mike, can you talk about playing on the road? And I'm talking about the road site, not necessarily the travel and stuff. I heard Coach Blair said something yesterday that he felt like that, you know, it's that home court advantage is almost, you know, somewhat negligible compared with COVID. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I disagree with Coach in that. I think it comes down to more of the goals, the sight lines, the color of the bleachers that you're shooting behind. I'll tell you this. I hear the crowd more this year than I ever have in my life because I actually can hear what they're saying to me. Like I've had a few people get under my skin a little bit that normally I don't think would have bothered me, but I get pissed off because I can hear what they're saying, you know, very clearly, they're on you, you know, they get in your bio and do some work. They do some research and it's a little more cutting than in the past. Coach Blair can't hear anyway, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But no, I mean, what he's talking about is probably like when the crowd gets up but our crowd still makes that difference. I disagree with him. You know, I think the home crowd can still be there. I think it matters. I think it does still matter. I think, again, the optics, the environment, just the fans being able to be very much more heard. You know, I can't remember which game we were at, but I told their game administrator, I said, y'all might as well stop reading that sportsmanship pledge because that's just a suggestion because y'all are not enforcing it because they certainly got their money's worth that night. So I don't know. I think I know what Coach Blair's saying, but for us, ours is all more about the other stuff, Paul, the way the lights shine, where the backboard's set up, how the balls feel, are they aired up, all that stuff. I think it still matters, and this is the familiarity, with your seeing the rim and seeing the net and seeing all that stuff. It matters. I don't know how much, maybe not as much in the past, but I think it still matters.
He mentioned, you're playing on your own rims, so there should be some extra comfort there compared to all your opponents. He did say.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it.
Seth, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, when you look at your team, you mentioned the pandemic a little bit, but when you also look at just the seniors that you have on your team, is there anything that you do differently with this senior-laden team down the stretch?
Yeah, we talk a little bit more about the end along the way. I don't want it to seem sudden when it happens. I've talked to a couple of the kids about their professional aspirations, a couple of them about opportunities to, get internships, the possibilities of using that extra year. I think you do. You have to have conversations with your seniors because it starts to sink in on them. Hey, this is the last time we play at Missouri. Hey, this is the last, the first last time or whatever that popular thing is on social media to do. It hits you. And it's real. And if you turn your head to it, I think it can consume them. So you do talk about it and you're there for them. You try to provide them with information. And I think I said this before at the beginning of the year. I think it's a lot harder to win with a bunch of seniors than underclassmen because that's a factor that, like we won't have that problem next year because we don't have any seniors. Potentially won't have any seniors depending on how it all works out, but we won't have any class-wise. So it's different. I think you have to talk about it. The other thing I think that's different this year is we don't have captains because I don't know how you would have come up with who was and who wasn't because they all have a lot of great qualities. So I've kind of got a little bit of a council, we call them. We play cards about once a week before and or after practice and talk about things that are going on and coming up and address them. So, that's been a little different too. It's not been like we don't have a captain or a captain's meeting. We have this council of everybody that everybody's kind of got their own little areas they're responsible for. And we get together and meet. So that's been a different thing that I'm not so sure we might not keep doing that after COVID's over. It might be one of those things COVID teaches us that might be a better way to do things than we've done in the past.
That's what I was going to ask a little bit about the council and how that is a little bit different. How have these roles been defined a little bit since you have 6 people? Yeah, and I can bring Mac in there. To me, Mac has played as many minutes as a lot of kids have played during their junior or senior year. So she's got upperclassmen minutes. But I try to get somebody, I just try to get them in areas in which they're comfortable impacting. I don't want to put Chelsea in charge of being our rah-rah cheerleader type because that's not her. That's like, again, I know I use pawpaw neighbors all the time, but that's like, hiring a turtle to try to climb a tree. You hire a squirrel, to do that. So I try to put people in positions where they can be successful and can add benefit. I think it's brought me closer to everybody instead of just a select few. And hopefully it's brought them a little bit closer too in a year when being close with somebody is really hard to do. So I hope it's given us, I don't know, we'll look back at it at the end. When I talk to them, they may tell me it was the worst idea we ever had, but right now it seems to be kind of working a little bit. But it's just putting people in a position to where their strengths can be used for the betterment of the team and help them grow as well.
Russell, go ahead if you got anything else.
I know you've played Auburn since, but just what has this week been like with all the attention that you guys have received after the UConn game?
It's been a lesson in managing it. I don't want to take away from it. I don't want to try to squelch it or push it back or push it away. I think you do have to embrace it. I think if you don't, you miss an opportunity. We learned that last year, that you better celebrate along the way because it could get taken from you in the end. But at the same time, you've got to have some understanding of what comes with that. I think that the start to the Auburn game, like we talked about, that was the most predictable thing that any of us could have ever predicted. It was coming. And but we fought through it. We got through it. And I thought it was a huge shine for our men last night to kind of go through that same type of thing, off to a tough start. But if you watch clips of Moses Moody, you couldn't tell whether it was in the first 5 minutes of the game or the last 5. He was the exact same. So I hope our kids have learned from that. But it would be, I just think it would be wrong of us to tell Chelsea not to respond to an 8-year-old girl making an awesome video about her, or don't respond to these text messages. I'm still returning text messages from Thursday. I give myself about an hour a day to do that, and then the rest of the time is spent. But I don't think you can just say bury it and we'll celebrate it later. It loses its luster and it might not ever happen. So you have to talk about it. You have to help each other through it. You have to know that it's but it has been crazy. I mean, it's from the day after to doing literally a car wash of interviews to still returning text messages. And then, the honors started coming out for Chelsea, and, trying to explain to fans how a kid can be National Player of the Week, but a co-SEC Player of the Week, which I didn't have a really good answer for, but I tried. You got to embrace it because it's what the reality of it is. And if we tried to tell them to ignore it, they wouldn't anyway. And then they wouldn't be equipped with the tools on how to handle it. So this is how you do it. This is the consequence of doing this. We are going to be flat Sunday. I don't care what anybody. We can give the Newt Rodney speech. We can bring in the coach from the United States hockey team and talk to us. We're still going to be flat. But just how you got to respond to it. So I hope it's a life lesson for them that sometime later in life, when they've closed a big deal, selling houses, and they know they got to go out and sell another house the next day, still rejoice, celebrate, do what you need to do, but get back to work. Because again, all it does is now add expectations, just like it did before. I said, y'all know how it felt. We beat Baylor, and then all of a sudden everybody expected us to win at Kentucky, at Tennessee, at Georgia, at South Carolina. So the expectations go up. That's what comes with the territory of what you're doing. Let's learn and move on.
Brett, go ahead.
I'm good. I think Mike's heard enough from me this week.
Luncheon and chalk talk, and we've pretty much covered it. We're good.
Anyone else for Coach?
I got
Seth,
one.
Go ahead.
Go.
Just to kind of build off of that real quick, Mike, you kind of look at Arkansas sports, and there are catalysts from, Arkansas baseball and Brady Toops, and then all of a sudden Arkansas baseball becomes this huge thing. Nolan Richardson, even before that with Eddie Sutton and the basketball team. Do you think that UConn win could serve as a catalyst for Arkansas women's basketball?
Get better because we're counting on it. And that's why I say that 24-hour rules, we talk about it, but it's not a real thing. Because when recruiting comes around, it's going to be a big poster. We're going to talk about it again. So, it can be. And I think it has been, even just, early, just getting the game was a win. And then to win the game makes it maybe a more potent catalyst. I do think you'll see a recruit or two spin our way. I think you'll see our ability to get in a tournament. Like we got invited to play in a little bit more prestigious tournament during the non-conference than we've ever been. I know the viewership for both of our nationally televised games with Baylor and on ESPN have been good with UConn. I think it helps all of those things. I think Chelsea can be that kid that is a magnetic type person that people talk about, for a number of years, especially that 37-point performance against UConn. People, I think, will, build that into something over the next 10 years. It may be 47 or there'll be 10,000 people there. And she did more than that. It's one of those nights. And I I hope it is, and it'd be an honor if we could be a part of that to get us to where we're talked about to be an NCAA tournament every year. You know, that's what we talked about trying to do with this place. It's never been one to be considered back-to-back years for going to the NCAA tournament or consecutive years. We want it to be news when we don't make it rather than when we do make it. And I think we're headed that direction. I think this is in year 4 to be able to be talked about this deep into the year. We've been ranked in the top 25 all year long. You know, we're solidly in anybody that does a bracketology thing. And it's better to be there than on the bubble or what they call that debatable 8. I think we were the debatable 8 a couple of years ago. It's a sign, but we still have got a lot more work to do to finish it off.